Hey guys, we are back here in the project Terra Oculta, and today we're gonna talk about a very controversial subject: alien abductions. Today, alien abduction is very popular in our culture. We see alien abduction films everywhere, in Hollywood and other places, and people talking about alien abductions everywhere. But what is an alien abduction? Is it true? Is it real? Are we abducted by aliens and we don't remember? According to some research in America, at least more than 5 million people, or 5 million Americans, they were abducted by aliens. And this is well known because some people, they go into hypnosis to find out things that they don't remember that happened during the abduction. But this reality is very interesting because there are some aspects or hidden aspects. They are never commented or they are never shown to the public, to the general public, about these abductions. And we're going to see in this video what really happens about this phenomenon. The alien abduction phenomenon today has become for a large part of researchers and abductees almost as a cult to supposed interplanetary visitors who, according to the vast majority of people who claim to be abductees, come here to warn us about possible negative futures for humanity, or even hybridize with humans through rudimentary genetic experiments carried out on the supposed extraterrestrial ships. But can the abduction phenomenon really be analyzed and described only by this perspective, so simple and incomplete that it ended up becoming more of a belief system that is being disseminated in movements of the new era, or even by casuistic ufology? The abduction phenomenon is as old as mankind, and it can be found described in prehistoric cave paintings, like those of Tassili Najar in the Sahara. Contrary to the classic view of casuistic ufology, the phenomenon shares an identical structure to the occult rituals of the past, where, in a practically identical phenomenology, we can find cases of contacts of people from the past with no human consciousness, such as angels, demons, elves, sylphs. The phenomenon itself can be investigated by the hypnosis offered to the traumatized abductee, but with great caution, following procedures that do not contaminate the mind of the abductee with fanciful memories that do not exist. In the vast majority of cases, the hypnotherapist is the ufologist himself, and this should never happen. The hypnotherapist should be a professional in the field without ties to ufology, and the hypnotherapy session should never be held in the presence of the ufologist. This, unfortunately, should not happen. But if we analyze the abductee's case, we will see something interesting and contradictory described in situations where it's alleged that genetic hybridization experiences between humans and aliens are performed. In many situations, through hypnosis, the abductee describes a terrifying picture, where he is injured by instruments that pierce him and withdraw human fluids, and sexual relations between the abductee and a crew member of the supposed extraterrestrial ship are described by the abductee. But the question becomes controversial, because how can interstellar travelers with highly developed technology use such medieval methods to carry out genetic hybridization? Even our genetic laboratories do not use these dull methods to study genetics. a geneticist would never have sex with a chimpanzee himself to conduct hybridization experiments between men and chimpanzees. If they were so advanced in this respect, they could enter hospitals without being noticed and draw blood from blood banks and also genetic material and embryos from the embryo bank. Nowadays we have an advanced technology in genetics that we could even use to clone a human being. So it makes no sense of these beings to do what they do if they had a technology thousands of years ahead of us and still came from other planets. Abductees return with scars, bleeding, punctured, with implants and totally traumatized, psychologically and physically. They put the victim in a situation of terror and still use medieval methods that take pieces and still mark the victim. For a civilization with more advanced technology than ours, this would not be necessary. How can these aliens be so contradictory and repetitive in their methodology and communications with abductees? They usually speak to the abductees, but they never say anything interesting and concrete about their agendas here on the planet. None of the alleged aliens generally sounds as engaging as a 10-year-old human child. These communications between aliens and abductees are very similar in comparison and content to mediumistic communications with the disincarnated or spirits of the dead. The records and data demonstrated that the communicators never utter anything really interesting and substantial, both in relation to our human situation on the planet and in relation to the situation of these beings who are in another reality. Most mediumistic conversations with spirits, for example, consist of: "We met with your disincarnated Uncle Leonard. How is he doing?" "Okay, he's recovering." Or even the communications of those contacted by aliens, such as: "We came from Venus to alert the human race." A very interesting aspect analyzed from the phenomenon of immediate contacts related to the UFO phenomenon is that these contacts are very similar to the experience of near-death that thousands of people have gone through and reported around the world. We know today that the vast majority of alien as well as spiritual abductions occur not physically but spiritually. That is, they occur in relation to the soul or at an extra-physical level. There are hundreds of reports of people who suffered abductions in their rooms, but in an extra-physical way. As we have already said, if tomorrow we found a civilization living underground in the planet Mars, on our first trip to Mars, we would not need to travel to Mars thousands of times, over a period of 40,000 years, to understand the Martians. With a few trips, it would be enough to have a broad picture of the situation. So why have we been visited by these beings for thousands of years? The abduction phenomenon is actually a method of mentally probing abductees. The aliens are time and interdimensional travelers. In reality, when an abductee is terrorized, this terror is created with the introduction of false memories, or often even with real situations of terror, so that these beings can mentally penetrate the mind and memories of the abductee. Mental terror acts as key that opens the abductee's mind. These memories are recorded or extracted from abductees by these beings for some specific purposes. The first major purpose is to map the timelines in which the domain of these beings expands. Such mapping allows the navigator to locate itself in the time and in the reality in which it finds itself. This reference is based on the facts that occurred during the life of the abductee in that reality. This mapping is very important when the objective is to change the history or facts connected to the reality or timeline. We know that even simple decisions by ordinary people can have a domino effect of actions and reactions that in some generations of families can even decide the future of civilization, or even where society's reengineering was directed and pre-established by these beings. The second reason of this mental penetration into the abductee's mind is to statistically know an approximated number of people who left their pre-established life script in compulsory reincarnation. How is it done? And how do you know that this or that individual is out of your life script? And why do you know that? What purpose? When we are born at a time and in a certain country and in a certain family. These predeterminations will connect us to energies that govern our existence and predetermine a path to be followed. This is correlated with the energy of the name you receive with the day, place and time you were born, the planet you are on, the country you were born in, the family that generated you, and other things. These energies and factors will direct you to a sequence of actions that will take and carry out in your life, and those decisions made will be more or less in tune with those energies or factors that govern your life's script or not. These decisions many people believe to be free will, but many times we get out of these pre-established life itineraries, totally for a number of reasons. This life path is usually pre-established and its purpose can vary from being simple pieces in the realization of this domino effect of actions and reactions over generations and generations, even with the purpose of being pruned in our potentials and ideas that were erased from our minds through reincarnation. But many times we get out of these scripts, and this often leads to the creation of parallel timelines, out of control, outside the domain, and outside the mapping of these beings. We end up creating versions of ourselves as fragmented fractals of our higher self, and then we mentally jump from one reality or timeline to another without us being suspicious. And we left behind, in our old timeline, a mental version of us that continues to exist within that script. We left behind a fragmented soul. Within an interdimensional control system, this is vetoed and controlled so that it doesn't really happen. If this is happening frequently, these beings enter the scene to get accurate information to know immediately, because of this mental change outside the pre-established script and control for millennia and millennia. In this way, abductions increase for them to reformulate a sequence of choice and decisions of thousands of people in this or other parallel realities. In many of these abductions, the introduction of false memories and mental suggestions causes a number of people to fulfill their role of keeping facts and events in a pre-programmed order. This concern for constant control on the part of these beings occurs because in these new timelines created in our jumps, there is a possibility that time cycles or loopings may be broken or interrupted in the mental existence of the person who took the leap and end up anchored mentally in another reality. This strategy for a few humans who realize this reality is used to get out of mental time loopings or arrests. This is not tolerated or allowed by the control system because, after all, these beings are masters of matter, space and time, and humans do not even suspect their existence and how things work here in our reality.